From the SNC World Headquarters in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, and here are the stories we're following at this hour. Residents in Florida are being urged to evacuate as another powerful hurricane makes its way to the state. It marks the second major storm to impact America's southeast in 2 weeks, following Helene, which caused extensive damage. Mitch McCann has more.
Time is running out, but you do have time today to make the decision to heed any evacuation orders and to do what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. Let's prepare for the worst, and let's pray that we get a weakening and hope for the least amount of damage as possible.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is describing Hurricane Milton as a ferocious storm, and it's reported to be the strongest in the Gulf of Mexico since 2005. Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents are being warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor Jane Castor has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die. It follows the deaths of more than 200 people in the U.S. Southeast caused by Hurricane Helene only days ago. In New York, Mitch McCann, Salem News Channel.
President Biden is postponing his upcoming trip overseas as Hurricane Milton approaches the United States. Our White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
The president was scheduled to leave Washington on Thursday for a trip to Germany and Angola, but has decided to stay at the White House. A spokesperson says given the projected trajectory and strength of Hurricane Milton, Mr. Biden will postpone his foreign travel in order to oversee preparations for and the response to Milton, as well as the ongoing response to Hurricane Helene.
Election Day is just 4 weeks away. After Kamala Harris largely avoided interviews since replacing President Joe Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket, she is now making time for a media tour with appearances on The View, 60 Minutes, and conversations with radio host Howard Stern, late-night host Stephen Colbert, and podcast host Alex Cooper. The blitz comes as early voting is already underway in many states. More than a dozen states and the District of Columbia filed lawsuits against TikTok today, claiming the video app is harming youth mental health by designing its platform to be addictive to kids. Las Vegas is saying goodbye to the Tropicana in an elaborate implosion that will level 2 hotel towers in 22 seconds. The celebration at 2:30 a.m. Wednesday will include a fireworks display and drone show. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said his country will speed up steps towards becoming a military superpower with nuclear weapons. Laura Westbrook has more.
Kim Jong-un said North Korea would not hesitate to use all attack capabilities against its enemies if the country came under attack. He also mentioned South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol by name, calling out Seoul for colluding with Washington to destabilize the region. Now, tensions have risen on the Korean peninsula. North Korea unveiled a facility to produce weapons-grade uranium and continues to run missile tests. Last week, South Korea marked an annual Armed Forces Day featuring a military parade and a U.S. strategic bomber.
A European spacecraft has set off on a 2-year journey to investigate whether killer asteroids can be knocked off course. The $400 million spacecraft blasted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida on board a SpaceX rocket. Giles Gibson reports.
Scientists involved in the HERA project are calling its mission a crash scene investigation. After a 2-year trip, the spacecraft will come into the orbit of an asteroid that was hit by a NASA probe back in 2022. Scientific instruments on board HERA will test how much of an impact the NASA spacecraft made on the asteroid's trajectory. In Brussels, Giles Gibson, Salem News Channel.
A decade after the Flint, Michigan water crisis raised alarms about the dangers of lead in tap water, President Joe Biden is setting a 10-year deadline for U.S. cities to replace lead pipes and make drinking water safe for all Americans. Pepsi has lowered its organic revenue forecast for the year after U.S. consumers continue to pull back on its snacks and drinks. Jeremy House reports.
The company says it now expects its organic revenue, which is adjusted for foreign currency exchanges and the impact of product acquisitions or divestments, to see a low single-digit increase for the year. It had expected an increase of 4%. Pepsi said its revenue was flat in the third quarter at $23.3 billion.
Now let's check out today's closing bell numbers. And that's what you need to know at this hour. In New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.